in Jesus'
Okay. A quick introduction then. This is Operation Good Oil. We are here to answer your many questions regarding the report that was put out last night, our shipping alert broadcast news that was done through Marsden Point News Radio in association with Good Oil last evening, the 22nd of the 10th, 2022. Now, some of you guys may be getting a little bit uneasy about what we did report. Look, what Carl and I have been recording is the amount of ships that do come in and around this country since March and April this year, since we switched over from a crude oil conversion. We are now relying on what's called a refined petroleum input to this country. Initially, back in March, there were reports that came out the year before from Hale and Toomey, who are advisors to the government and Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, that does stipulate, and a damn well good report, there could be problems. Right, so this is what got us started, and we've been moving forward with this since then. Now, we know the frequency of the tankers and what there should be coming into this country. There should be one tanker every 2 days, or it was a rough estimate given by Maritime as well, that there should be at least 176 tankers in and out of this country a year. There has, in fact, been a heck of a lot more. We're up to 110, I think, just now. We're only into 6 months. So that tells you the consumption that the country goes through. I still have the figures. I will get them out to you, okay? Or what is in a typical year. It looks like we've been going over that. Right, getting to the point. What Carl and I saw yesterday afternoon, around about 4 o'clock, we were talking on the phone. We were on Maritime Vessel, as we do, and we saw one tanker south of Norfolk Island, and that was it. There was nothing on the horizon. And we did note that Wellington's last delivery by the Rich Rainbow was the 27th of last month. We're now on day 26 of Wellington being empty for shipping. Wellington, okay, the storage point down Seaview is huge, right? It's a large area, but the ships that do come in there often turn around to Shelley Bay, where they drop off aviation fuel for the airport. Now, remember the size of Wellington Airport. They do drop off aviation fuel there. They also dock and moor near the Inter-Islander ferry terminal, where they drop off bunker fuel. Now, if you don't know, ships do not run on petrol. They do not run on diesel. They run on a heavy oil, bottom of the barrel bunker fuel that burns deep black smoke when it's out at sea. Also, there is a diesel locomotive engine oil and fuel that they drop off there as well. So Wellington has been vacant of any vessels. We're now on day 26. We don't know the storage capacity of what they're holding down there, because the government has now kept it under wraps, and that comes from New Zealand Security, kept under wraps 1 minute past 4 on the 3rd of September, according to Radio New Zealand report. So, given that, we have noted there is one ship that's still on the way. Okay, it's the one at Norfolk Island. Trouble is, it hasn't moved since last night. And there are another 2 that we did, Carl has just recorded, that are parallel with the New Caledonia. They're still up in the Coral Sea that have just appeared. There must have been a considerable amount of congestion up there, because it is a very tight, narrow port that they've only just gotten through. That was late last night. They did appear on the map. And it was like, okay, thank goodness. But the distance they're coming from, it's going to take until the 28th of this month before one of them is going to ETA from about the 28th. The other one might be the 29th. So we're still a good lot of days out before those tankers can bring enough fuel to this country. As I say, everything's been kept under wraps about what we do have in fuel stock holdings. We were supposed to be 90 days of supply. Unfortunately, back in March, the government sold it off, and it wasn't actual fuel, it was ticket prices. So that's a little bit of a thing there that you need to take into consideration. And the stock holding that the government holds as actual figures could be the fuel, well, is the fuel that's included in the ships that are on the way to New Zealand. It's not landed, okay, it isn't here yet, but they're still counted as stock. Unfortunately, 2 of the ships that we were watching last night out of 5, right, have already turned away and headed north. Northeast coast of Papua New Guinea. So we lost 2 of 5 already. So there is no guarantee that ships will arrive in New Zealand. So we're down to 1 that's near us, 2 that is that are very far away. So we're still in the same situation as last night, but nothing's guaranteed when it comes to this. It's a stock market they play. So I'll leave it over to you guys. You pick it up from there.
Yeah, so hey everybody. So I just want to apologise for putting out there last night that we had 0 incoming ships. That was a little bit of a miscommunication between David and myself. We did actually have 1 ship. So as David's mentioned, there is 1 tanker on its way. What about 8 to 9 tankers around New Zealand in various positions, but that's nothing unusual. We should expect to have 8 or 9 tankers around New Zealand at any given time. The concern that David and Carl are raising are the fact that they're not seeing the same amount of traffic that they normally see. So hence our warning. So David or Carl, how many ships would you typically sort of expect to see on your radar within the vicinity heading in any given day?
When I'm go looking, I'll sometimes find anywhere between 3 and 5 tankers heading towards New Zealand, and a similar sort of amount will be heading away.
Right, so
I've got the ones that arrived the week before, have done their run, and they're away. Some of them come into Marsden Point and are away within a couple of days of coming here. Most tankers are doing 2 or 3 ports before they leave New Zealand. Yeah, and there's been a number that have been staying anchored up and not going into ports for several days, which is unusual.
okay, so the ones that are anchored up and not going into port, David, you have mentioned, and it was mentioned in our report, that they are operating a ticket system, yeah? Can you explain to people a little bit about the ticket system?
Okay, it's a ticket pricing option where News Hub did actually report, and the clip is still available if you want to go and look at it. It's still available on YouTube somewhere. That there was a tanker that was heading from China to New Zealand, suddenly turned away to another country because it made an extra $3 million by doing so. It's a bit like the stock market where they will place a ticket auction on a ship. You've got no guarantee that that ship will end up coming to your country. If they pay a deposit on that ship, you will get your deposit back, but that's about it. You will miss out on your fuel.
Well,
so essentially the ticket option is not actually a contract. It is just an option for that product.
It's a paper option like gold.
yeah. It's not guaranteed product. We haven't bought it until it arrives and we pay the money. Wow.
Yep. So it works. So as I say, the 2 ships just turned away this afternoon at 4:27. They were in the Coral Sea, and they have now decided to head north along with the cargo shipping line that goes to the east coast of Papua New Guinea. So there were 2 that were part of a fleet. Either they had that pre-planned, but Carl, I think you did say that they were actually destined here, and they've gone off somewhere else now. As I say, it's a wild game.
No, those 2 are still coming to us.
Yeah.
The other 28th and 29th arrival, one in Littleton, one in Marsden Point.
Yeah, those are the first 2, but there were another 2 behind that just moved off.
Yeah, I didn't see those 2.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So they just disappeared. So ticket price options, there are white tickets and black tickets. White tickets include regular, premium, diesel, and jet fuel. Black ticket options are diesel fuel and heavy bunker fuel and heavier other oils. used for manufacturing, industry, fuel energy heaters and stuff like that. So there's two different categories of ticket pricing there. So this is how it works. So it's not a simple thing. It's complicated. You're not guaranteed it until it actually, put it this way, I do not register a ship in my database until the ship is actually moored in off the jetty. I won't register it because there's no guarantee it's actually going to stop.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I actually follow them to see if anything unusual happens. And then I can report back that we had an issue with a tanker stopping somewhere or not coming or turning around, as you've seen, which is quite useful. And if later on, if somebody has issues in a port around New Zealand that fuel's being unloaded and causing issues, then we can go back and actually see which tanker it is and see where it's been popping in and out of and unusual movements it's been doing.
Yeah, and if we'll just carry on with the unusual movement, we did witness that a week ago, Carl, when we had 5 ships that had been offloading and moored at various docks, various ports around New Zealand. They all ended up in New Plymouth, 5 of them. And what we kind of suspected was they were actually offloading what they had in their heel tank, it's called. There is 10% of that fuel that arrives here that is absolutely no good. But so all of a sudden, out of the blue, they sent across this massive big tanker all the way from PA, Pennsylvania, in the USA, to pick it up. It did drop off at Korea first. It came across here full of ballast. It was empty. It was reporting ballast. It came and it went. And that was it. Further to strange things like that, in the Hale and Toomey report, which Catherine Ryan rightly brought up back in March, there is no guarantee of the quality of the petroleum or any of the fuels that we get here in New Zealand. If it's below standard, it will need to be sent offshore further for refining and then brought back into the country. So what you get is what you get, but there's no guarantee that anything processed overseas will be any good in New Zealand for our roads, for our motor vehicles. Yeah,
well, that was the issue before Marsden Point shut down with refined fuel from overseas. The 30% that was being brought in at different times, they've had product turn up out of spec, and it's been brought over to Marsden Point to be either blended with large quantities of New Zealand high spec or re-refined back to the required spec if they couldn't blend it. And that's no longer available. And the other thing I'm being told by a lot of people is there's a huge amount of waste oil coming from the industry, from mechanics and businesses that change oils and vehicles. Even the hydraulics industry are saying we're changing hydraulic fluids and machines. There's nowhere for that oil to go anymore. They're also saying there's no storage for that oil to go anywhere. I was told at Littleton there was storage facilities there, and it would be picked up and either taken to Marsden Point. That storage tank is now being used by somebody to store bitumen, by the sound of it. Right. So we've got an environmental issue with some waste oil, quite huge quantities of waste oil, like 200-litre drums are being used daily basis by these people.
Right.
Big transport firms and big earth moving people. They go for a lot of engine and gearbox and transmission oil, hydraulic oil. You can't dump it at the dump. It needs to go back and be re-refined. And there's nothing wrong with re-refining it. It becomes a really good recyclable product.
Okay.
Through the hydrocracker and go through the process again.
So one of these standard tankers that we get coming into New Zealand, they're usually LR1 class ships, aren't they? Capable of carting 60 to 65,000 tonnes of distillates or metric tonnes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, 183 metres by 32 metres I work them on. I call my standard ship.
Around 60 to 65,000 metric tonnes of distillates, which, as David rightly pointed out, 10% of the payload stays in the bottom of the tanker, usually to keep the water and the crap in. So we end up with about 55 million litres of fuel coming out of these tankers. which means that we need a tanker for petrol and diesel. We need a tanker every 3 days, and that doesn't include avgas or bitumen or anything like that. So we need about 125 tankers just for our petrol and diesel, and then according to Z, they said that we would be looking at about 175 tankers coming in per annum. So we're looking at 2 tankers a week. So you guys have sounded the alarm and said that the ships are looking thin. We are now in a situation we're not going to see another tanker arrive in New Zealand for a week or more. Is that correct?
Well, we can look at the one that's sitting just south of New Caledonia just now, and that's the only one. But as I say, that one seems to have stalled. I've no idea what's happening with it. One appeared overnight. Okay, so that's all good. Well, I didn't expect that one to come in. But really, the Coral Sea is a long way off. The end of the week, the 28th and 29th is not a good situation to be in. We do have, I think it's Carl just now, we have about 8 tankers that have been here all week, and they're pretty much emptied themselves now.
They should be.
And there's nothing on the horizon until we see those other 2 tankers coming down here. So we're at a gap. And as I say, Wellington has not seen a tanker. We're on day 26 now. Nelson is another port that I think we had 1 drop off there, and in the amount of time that's happened, Christchurch ended up the same. Fortunately, we had a couple of good runs, a couple of good ships there this week. We don't know how much they dropped off. Unfortunately, we can only guess by the size of the time.
Or what they're dropping off.
Or what they dropped off, yeah.
Jet fuel or petrol. It could.
When you say they've only had 1 drop off, David, what you're saying is that the ship's only visited the 1 port. Is that correct?
Well, for that, like for Nelson, it's only. I think it's been such a long time. I need to search back through and
it's been to somewhere else. Might have been Bluff or somewhere like that.
Okay. So we've got Angela Richardson is asking where is the fuel? Where are the fuel ships coming from? So where is our fuel coming from?
Korea mainly, and Singapore.
Yeah. Korea, Singapore,
Taiwan, China. The ones that are on the horizon now is 1 out of Singapore, 2 out of Singapore, 1 out of Korea. And yep, they're and I've got one somewhere that was out of China recently.
Yeah.
Okay, so Korea, Singapore, China, and earlier today, Carl, you're saying that sometimes we see the odd delivery come out of Australia, yeah?
And Japan.
We've got Japan, Taiwan, and we've got coming out of several ports out of Australia. They're usually smaller tankers, and they come over about 5 or 6 days. So maybe if they're running short somewhere, they can bring them over as a safeguard. The other one is there's been one came from India. So they tell me the Indian and Chinese fuel is using Russian crude, and possibly some of the other Asian countries are using that same Russian crude. We're not too sure.
Okay. So they're not long-term solutions for the current state of world affairs, the Russian stuff, yeah?
Well, when you hear that the Americans are running short of diesel fuel, 25 days of supply or something?
Yeah, that's
it. 38 million people. How big's their industry compared to 5 million people?
Yeah, 24 days. They've got 24 days backup supply of diesel, and according to Bloomberg, 2 European-bound tankers were diverted to New York yesterday or the day before.
Yeah. The problem we've got is the amount of time, the distance and travel. We've actually, Carl will back this up as well. We've actually had ships coming in from Argentina, believe it or not.
Took 38 days to get here.
Yeah, 38 days to get here. I mean, the fuel that was on those tankers has got to be spoiled by them. You know, the octane will have, I don't know how they store it. I'm not an expert on that, but I'm just saying. We've had anything between 18, 23, 28, 33 days to get here. That's how far away we have got to rely on fuel. Anything can happen between then and when it gets here. So we've got no regular fuel reliability reliability, everything is up in the air. And this is what got our concern out last night because of the lack of it on the map. And we're still in the same situation. So I'm going to stress this again. We did have one, we can see it. We've got two up in the Coral Sea. We've got two that are further afield, but there is no guarantee that these ships will actually get here. And what they've got on them, we don't know. But we do know one is an asphalt carrier. Sorry, we need petrol and diesel. Right now, we don't need asphalt. We need to replenish our tanks. Yeah. We're not sure of what we've got because MIMBY has said that you are not allowed to know. Why? Because it'll scare you. That's
well, as I said, according to the EEC, the EECA, I think it's Electrical Energy something or other, or the Energy Authority. We use 6.9 billion litres of petrol and diesel per annum. That's just petrol and diesel, and that would translate into 125 tankers per annum, which would translate into we need a fuel tanker every 3 days. That's to maintain current usage, and that doesn't give us any extra buffer.
We're halfway through the 12 months of Marsden Point being shut down, and I'm now over 108 tankers so far on my register, and I've only been tracking them for 3 months. So at 110 times 2 is 220 tankers for the year, plus whatever I have already missed out.
So by the time you add your jet fuel and your various other distillates that have to come in, because bearing in mind that Marsden Point or a refinery makes all other kinds of distillates that nobody ever talks about, that are used in various industries, and then your bitumen tankers. So that's where they probably got the 175 tanker figure from.
Yeah, LPG tankers was probably one of the numbers as well. Asphalt, bitumen, LPG.
Yeah. Well, I'm not registering them on my data, on my numbering system. This is just purely fuel tankers coming to New Zealand is at 108 at the moment.
Right.
But I've got a couple to put on that later on.
So yeah, I guess the situation where last week when Carol was reporting from Christchurch when we were doing a live noon broadcast, that Lyttelton was again like a desert. Thank goodness the tankers started turning up there. I know that's how desperate it got. Like we haven't seen tankers. Like again, it's a Wellington situation. Where are the tankers? And Carl has noted already this afternoon. There's nothing destined for Wellington, but they've targeted Napier.
Twice, two tankers.
Yeah, 2 tankers to Napier. It's like, okay, yeah, but we haven't seen deliveries there for such a long time. Taronga did get a good bit of top up there earlier on this week. With the amount of tankers that we've got here just now, the 7 or 8 that we've still got here, they did actually top up Taronga, which is really cool because it is the largest capacity in the country, and it's very central to Auckland, Northland, and the central districts there. New Plymouth, that was like 2 weeks ago before we've seen anything there. Napier, we haven't seen it, and then again Wellington, day 26. Lyttelton's looking pretty much okay. Timaru, Dunedin, that's where we've got 3 ships sitting out at two ships at each Timaru and Dunedin sitting out at anchor, waiting for the other ship to move offshore. And one was an LPG, the Arago, that was sitting there. And I just can't quite, it was the Bayou Sun that was actually sitting in Timaru, if I remember correctly. And that, I think, should have just moved away just now to let one of the other 2 ships in. And that's been happening for days.
Maersk moved away yesterday from Timaru.
Right.
And it's not going to Korea.
Yeah. Oh, just so that you know as well, 4 of the ships that were in the country this week that came in were actually Korean ships. They were heading back to Yishio in Korea, just to let you know the travelling distances. So if there are any more questions, fire away.
18 to 22 days for a tanker. heading
Yeah.
that direction, either coming to us or going.
Yeah.
So at 18 to 22 days, we should expect to see a minimum of 9 tankers on
Yeah.
the way at any given point, yeah? In order for them to be turning up.
Six at least.
You'd want to see at least 6, and you'd feel a bit more comfortable if you had 6 on the radar, yeah?
Yeah, Carl, would you agree? I mean, every time we start to look at our shipping logs and stuff like that, when we look out across the ocean, that's what we'd normally, we'd pick up, each day, there's a good 3, 4, 5 that are coming in close, a day or two behind each other. And that's normal. You see a steady stream. And now it's just like, where are the ships?
Yeah. So we've got a total of 3 on the radar right now. And 2 of them are not due until the end of the month, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, 3 of them are not due till the end of the month, according to this.
All 3 of them, Carl?
Yeah, I've got a Napier one 27th, a Marsden Point on the 28th, and a Littleton one on the 29th.
Yeah. So we're not expecting any more shipments for a week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's already been way too long for some ports. For some ports around New Zealand, it is already stretching what they may just have in their stock holding. As I say, nothing is guaranteed in this game. We don't know what they've got until the petrol station closes.
I can see why you're a little bit concerned. Now, Angela again is asking if either of you guys know if the New Zealand Defence Force have their own reserves.
Oh, they'd have to. They'd have to. Yep.
Yeah. From what I can tell,
But they will be getting them from the same supply. BP normally supplies the Defence Force in New Zealand. When I was in the army, it was always BP that we went to and BP cards. I presume it's the same with the Navy.
They're essentially just like the rest of us, and they're dependent on these tankers turning up from South.
Real. Yep.
And if they can't get any diesel, then they might as well use their labs as.
The Defence Force did have through the Navy their own fuel tanker, supply tanker, which could go out to sea and refuel their frigates. I don't know if that's still there because they were replacing it at one stage.
Right. Well, wouldn't be much of a Navy without a fuel tanker, would it?
No, well, they were supposed to be using that ship also to supply other navies when they're in our vicinity.
Right.
Which was coming from Marsden Point when it would have been fueling up. It would have been going to Marsden Point to restock and then go back out in the sea wherever it was required, or be tied up at Devonport.
yeah, and the question
And that doesn't show up on our radar. We can't find that tanker. I haven't been able to find that tanker at this stage.
You probably won't be able to find.
No, it'll be strategic. It'll be kept secret. Same as our Defence Force ships. I presume they're not something the general public should be able to see.
Absolutely. All right, I think we've covered it all for the folks at home.
I've been told if anybody wants to put some diesel away for a rainy day, find out how much kerosene you can add to it to stabilise it and stop it getting affected by anything.
Yeah.
Because diesel and jet fuel are close to each other. They're in the same stage of the refining process right at the bottom. So you can add kerosene to diesel, and it makes the shelf life a lot better.
Absolutely. And if you've got an old diesel, you can even boil some vegetable oil.
Yeah.
And add a little bit of diesel to it once it cools down, obviously, but get the diesel oil into it while it's still warm. The reason you boil the vegetable oils, you get as much of the water out as you can. You can do a chemical process even better, but you can make your diesel go a lot further with a bit of veg oil. Seed oil is good, but I don't know if you guys can see that.
yeah.
We also had an old petrol tractor back when I was younger that it was running on petrol, and the boss used to blend it with a bit of diesel to make it go a bit further because diesel was cheap back then.
So that's Dominion Road, Auckland this afternoon. The diesel is 20 cents, exactly 20 cents more expensive than 91. So I suspect that due to the worldwide diesel shortage, and I'm going to put this in there, Megan Woods, you knew about this back in 2021 before you signed off on shutting our refinery down. We put it in our report. The IEA warned of a coming diesel shortage. We're probably going to be experiencing a diesel shortage very shortly if what you gentlemen are saying is shaping up to be.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
There's a world shortage in there, so I don't know. 5 million people are going to get preference on the supply.
yeah, I'll just extend what you were just saying there, Levi. As oilprice.com did put out a report that was actually by Tyler Durden from Zero Hedge, that basically all the stock in the Middle East and Eastern Asian countries is now heading to America. I mean, the population, I think, is 135 million people there. A lot of big trucks, a lot of energy is used there. And everything, as we spoke about yesterday from Reuters News, again, the demand is up for the whole of Asia to move its stocks west to Europe and America. Do you really think they're really going to worry about, us at the bottom of the world? Well, look what's already happened. It's already starting. Starting to happen. We should be seeing a lot of ships on the sea heading our way. We've got one that's still hanging around below Norfolk. Danwell hasn't moved. We've got two that's stuck up at the Coral Sea, which is, a weekend away. And that's it. So again, we're not much better off than we were last night. We've got one that's just popped into Marsden Point. That could be jet fuel. We're not quite sure. I mean, we do have Auckland Airport there, and we do have the Wiri terminal, so Wiri Auckland sort of thing. So at Marsden Point, we've got Taronga. Hopefully, it'll be topped up. But then we're still in the same situation. It's been too many days between the last top-ups. We should have been topped up, continually topped up, and we've not been topped up.
The thing with Marsden Point too is the terminal there is supplying 40% of New Zealand's fuel use in the Northland and Auckland region.
Yeah.
And how can that be happening when there's only one tanker coming, occasionally two? And when they opened the border and they said the airlines were flying, we had four all of a sudden turn up from nowhere because they needed to top up. So we should be having at least two coming there and a week, and one of them, if it's not needing all of its product to go along to some of the other terminals.
Yeah. So hey, I'll just if you guys want to finish up, I'll just finish off where I started. So we hope we didn't worry you guys too much. It's just that, look, it's better that you know what's going on with our shipping rather than it come upon you unexpectedly. And I'm sure there's a good Bible quote for that, but I just can't quite get it. It's better to know. It wasn't out for a big scare thing. We're observant in what the work that we do. It's unpaid. We do this voluntary. It's good. It's damn well just as well that someone's doing this. That's all I'm going to say. But look, when we saw this, we thought, okay, Carl and I spoke at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They said, look, we better just get this out there and let you know. It so happens that from last night to right now, there's not a lot changed. So we got one ship that's here, one ship that maybe could be coming in that's stuck somewhere, south of New Caledonia, New Caledonia. Sorry, no, Norfolk. And then we've got distances between us and the next delivery. We keep consuming fuel at the rate we're doing, and nobody's warning us. We're going to get hit with what is called the Petrol Demand Restraint Act 1981, revised on October the 28th, 2021. And if you haven't got that, it's up on the website. Okay? So everything that you need is getting put on Telegram and the website for you. It's really good documentation. You really need to read the reports. Okay? You really need to educate yourselves.
And that Petroleum Restraint Act, if it's deemed there's an emergency, a fuel shortage or anything like that, doesn't matter what your business is or what you do, if you store fuel, they can come and get it to use it for the defence, police, army, and St John's and that. So, and civil defence. So be warned that you might think you're able to carry your business on, but even if you've got good supplies of fuel on hand, the government might deem that they want it. And I presume you get paid for it, but it's no good being paid for something you haven't got it to put in your machines. Your machines don't operate, do they?
Yeah.
That's what the fuel industry, people said to me today, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money to get the refinery going in. It doesn't matter what the cost to getting the refinery going in. It's more important to have the fuel security that we can actually make the fuel here in New Zealand than be reliant on something being imported from overseas. That's why Sir Keith Holyoake's government built it in 1962 for our fuel security. And then Muldoon's government upgraded it even more after other fuel crises in the 1970s. And now we're at the most strategic point in world history of oil shortages globally, not just some countries. And the mention of the Asian refineries having to send diesel to America, well, that's the Northern Hemisphere is going into its winter when they use diesel for heating, electricity, and their industry. So they're going to, there's billions of people up there compared to 5 million down here.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we didn't have oil, it wouldn't make sense. But the fact of the matter is that we've got oil. And because we've got oil, we should have a refinery in order to make our own diesel, because our farms and our transport, our food and our livelihoods rely on that diesel. It's pure sabotage, the fact that it was taken apart. We're going to be writing an open letter to the bosses of the Defence Forces alleging conspiracy to commit sabotage. That's going to be coming along with some other lawful action, which we're going to be bringing against Naomi James and the directors of Channel Infrastructure at a further date. But before that, we've got a report coming out, a part 2. We're going to be dealing with the fuel supply issue. And we'll be detailing how many ships have come. We'll be logging it all out for you to see. We'll be detailing how much supply capacity is in each port, and then we'll be able to use average consumption figures to come up with some kind of just a vague, rough average possibility of how much fuel may still be sitting around in those tanks down there. But gentlemen, it's been over half an hour, so
okay.
Anybody else got any last words before we wrap up?
There's another player in the game that is down in Timaru. It's called Tasman Fuels. Now, from what I can believe, it's when you look on the company register, it's owned by a gentleman from Singapore, and he supplies the South Pacific Islands with a lot of fuel. So I don't know how big a player is, but he's got his own terminal facility there at Timaru with some new tanks and everything there. So he's supplying quite a big bit of the South Canterbury region, and he's got a fuel station in Christchurch, and he's building more as we speak. So there's lots of people out there supplying fuel around New Zealand. There's so many outfits that are actually the delivery trucks. We've got NPD, Allied Petroleum, McEwen's, South Fuel, North Fuel. It just goes on. Falls. It's just and Move, which is part of Nelson Transport. It's amazing. They reckon New Zealand's got more fuel outlets per head of population than anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all rely on ships coming in from.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they're all the same fuel.
All right, if you want to wrap this up, Levi, I'll just say, folks, look, if you want to get in touch with us, there is operationGoodOil.co.nz. There's also MarsdenPointNewsRadio.co.nz. Email addresses are there. If you guys want to send an email in with any questions, we'll get back to you. And we do not spam your email box with any personal stuff. And we don't hold any personal information. There is also a YouTube channel, Marsden Point News Radio, for you as well. That's on YouTube. I'll start populating that with a bit more items and stuff. We do have the midday and the 6 o'clock reports that come out through audio, through Telegram. If you're not already in there, then do try. The subject matter is always up to date and it's worldwide. We're taking worldwide news items that's going on, both local and worldwide, sorry. It's to do with fuel, energy, it's sometimes money as well, because money is a crucial part of this whole chain. So we'll look at the whole energy train, you know, that can cover many subjects. Subjects can be quite wide and varied, but they all relate back to our energy and the crises that we could face. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Cheers, bye. Cheers, Carl.